proud members of the Fan First Sports Network.
We're about to highlight just a little bit of what we think about the Iowa game, but the majority of our feelings on the Iowa game are going to be spread during our live preview Husker Tailgate Black Shirt Friday coming up at 4:30 at Let It Fly West out in Elkhorn. It's basically off 204th and Pacific area. We'd love to have you all out there. If you'd like to come up and give it your score prediction, give us a bold prediction for the game, just say hi, whatever. Come on up.
Party.
We're going to start at 4:30. We're going to be partying. We're going to stay there through the game and party and drink our faces off with the fans and hopefully be celebrating win number 7.
45, 40, 35, 40, he's gonna go! It's time, people, feel us!
Big Red Junkies.
Day by day, he gets better and better! He gets better and better! If we die, we die!
Man, put a child in that. Put him in the aisle.
Bring that trophy back to Lincoln!
Hey, we are going bowling, boys. Holy shit, was that a fun game to be at. And we were all there.
So
the
much fun.
atmosphere was pumped.
Loud.
I hadn't been in a game since Northern Iowa, but I know you guys have both been to several since then. What did you think of the crowd?
Loud.
It wasn't necessarily just the fact that it was loud. It's like, at least where I was sitting, like nobody was sitting down much.
No.
It was a lot of standing.
There was a lot of effort by the crowd, in my
absolutely,
opinion.
Yes.
Yeah, they did exactly what I was asking for.
Yep.
That crowd was, and they were there the whole game. It was,
Yeah.
Nobody was leaving. It was
Oh,
awesome.
there were people crowding in the corners as the clock ticked down the last 5-ish minutes. It was actually really funny because I think all the stadium security knew what was going on.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you started seeing more cops getting pulled in and
So I was behind the Nebraska bench on about like the 20-ish yard line and on the where Wisconsin would come out. And, you know, you always have those orange coats that are standing along the fence line and stuff like that, just making sure. And there was one guy, and at each kind of end of where the team stands, there's like one gate. And there was one guy standing at the gate, and he was just holding his ground at the gate while other people just jumped the fence around him. And he was still standing there. He wasn't stopping anybody, whatever else. Probably 50 people were jumping right around him, and he finally was like, screw this. And he just opened the gate and walked away. It's like, dude, why didn't you do that like 50 people ago? Like,
Yeah, no
relax,
shit.
dude.
It was also the most like Cornhusker orderly storming of the field ever.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was a polite storming.
Yeah.
our stadium is not built for people to jump out of the stands.
No, it's not.
It is not built for people to jump out of the stands. I saw a dude jump off of right in front of me, and he freaking broke his leg.
I'm sure he did.
Yeah, like compound fracture, saw the bone through his jeans sort of thing.
It's not like a Minnesota field where you're on the field sitting in your
exactly.
seat. You're a ways away.
Yeah, well, and that was the thing. I was like, what a dumbass. When you jump from that north end zone, like from the rail up top, I had to go down probably 12 to 15 stairs to get down.
Yeah.
You're easily jumping off at least a story-high building, if not maybe like 15, 20 feet.
He might have been a dumbass, but I can't blame him for being excited.
Oh, he was just drunk. He was just drunk.
That
and
was so
excited.
much fun.
That's what I was going to say.
Such a fun fucking game.
Are you sure he felt it?
He felt it.
He feels
Well,
it,
he's
he
feeling
feels
it
it today.
now. But I
There
meant,
was wailing.
like-
There was instant
Okay.
wailing. It was jump.
In other words, he's sobered up really fast.
Like, have you ever watched? I've got a 1-year-old right now. Have you ever watched a 1-year-old pinch their fingers?
I mean, yeah.
They
I
pinch
got
them, and it's like
a lot of kids, so.
it kind of winds up. That's what he did.
Okay.
It was bad.
Now we've all seen BJ at 1.
Yeah, it was bad. But I mean, the crowd was amazing the entire game. There is just a list of superlatives that needs to get rattled off here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I want to start with the offensive line because the offensive line for probably more than a decade, we've said, oh yeah, they had good games. We've never said they were good. With what they did at USC and how they built on it going into this week, they played a fucking awesome game. For Dylan Raiola to have 4 total pressures and no sacks in the game, throwing it, how many times did he throw it? Some 32 times? 38 times? That's insane.
Yeah.
especially for a Nebraska offensive line.
Well, and not just what they did for Dylan, but 0 tackles for loss allowed. The last time we had 0 tackles for loss allowed was 2014 Miami.
And guys, we're
So
talking
that's 10
about
years
Wisconsin.
ago. Yeah.
We're talking about Wisconsin, a team that held Oregon a week ago to 16 points.
Yeah.
Wisconsin, who looked beat and tired on the defensive line about halfway through the third quarter.
They really did. They really did. And,
Like the kind of push that we were getting in the fourth quarter was insane.
and I want to give a little bit of credit to them coming off of the Oregon game and that close, heartbreaking loss to Oregon. Kind of like what happened to us against Ohio State. I think we had a letdown against UCLA. They had a little bit of a letdown against us. But you can't take away from the fact that the offense never flinched the whole game. They just kept going. We talked about how bad our red zone offense has been this year. We went 7 for 7 in the red zone. We scored on, I think it was 6 consecutive drives.
We only punted the ball twice.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about that middle 8, the last 4 of the first half and the first 4 of the second half. We absolutely dominated that. It was it was either 17 or 20 points. It was insane.
Well, and going back to the offensive line really quick, rewatching the game Sunday night, I think it was. Well, I guess, yeah, today's Monday. So I was pleasantly surprised that I don't remember a game this year when I rewatched the game that I saw so many offensive linemen downfield blocking.
Oh,
Yeah.
God, yes.
Like 10, 15 yards downfield blocking.
Hell yes.
Specifically on little swing passes, whether it's a screen or just a swing or whatever else, just pulling around, getting downfield and blocking somebody.
Dude, Latovsky.
Yeah.
Latovsky was pulling and blowing dudes up. He has started to come on really, really strongly. And I know we've talked a lot about wanting Mazuka back out there, and that's really the spot that he's supposed to be filling. I don't know how you can take Latovsky out of the field right now, especially when you have Mazuka causing personal foul penalties. And
You just don't. You don't take him off the field. That's how good of a game
and
he
with
played.
what Rhule said today in the press conference, Mazuka apparently has been dealing with a shoulder injury that has been limiting him. So that's why we don't see him as much as.
Sure.
Well, I'm just saying
it
what
is
he
what
said.
it is, and that's fine. That might be.
I'm not saying you're lying to us. I'm saying, sure.
He was still in on.
It wasn't me. It was
I
what
think-
Rhule said. So
I think 3 of the 4 rushing touchdowns, he was still in on that play. And he was primarily lined up at left tackle, I believe, when he was in for those. But
on Pro Football Focus, it has him as left tackle.
yeah, I think that's what he was primarily in on. But I mean, I thought everybody played a stellar game. Well,
Speaking of rushing touchdowns, I saw Dante Dowdell, who had 3 in this game, make a cutback into the correct spot for the first time
Yeah, he
I've
corrected
ever
himself.
seen this year.
He corrected himself.
It was awesome.
His comeback was to
great.
keep from running into the back of Latovsky.
Telling me people don't learn anything in college these days.
You're right on that, but you can't take away from the guy who shined at that position, Emmet Johnson.
Oh, absolutely.
Holy shit, we finally look like we have a running back.
So I went through a handful of different things Sunday night while I was watching the game also, and I probably could have continued to go into the numbers and found this is the first time we've done X since X. But there a couple of things that I found was first 100-plus yard running game by a running back, because Purdy had over 100 rushing yards last year against Wisconsin. But by a running back, it's the first time we've had 100-plus rushing yards since Anthony Grant versus Minnesota in 2022. Most offensive points scored versus a power conference team since Purdue in 2022. Most yards versus a power conference team since the same Purdue team in 2022. Most rushing touchdowns in a game since the fateful Georgia Southern game, which didn't end well. Well, the game didn't end well, but the result of what happened after the game ended very well. Emmet Johnson had the most all-purpose yards since Trey Palmer, again, Purdue 2022. And we have now made 8 consecutive field goals in the last 4 games. That is the longest streak since we made 9 in a row in 2020.
Fuck it, dude. Let's go bold.
Goddamn right.
That's the field goal thing. That's big.
I know.
If you're Tristan Alvano, you got to be like,
Oh,
well, how
bye.
the fuck do I get my spot back next year?
You don't.
Well,
It's
I
not.
don't know. Get out there and kick well. That's how.
hey, it'd be a luxury to have two guys that we can rely on like that. But
BJ was saying on the ride back, he's like, I don't know, I think Alvaro might be in the portal. I said, fuck no. Not every kid has to run away from a competition.
Well,
just earn your spot back. Or don't.
And I don't know if we really want to get into that whole conversation, but whether he gets in the portal or not, or anybody, doesn't matter if it's Tristan Alvano or whatever else. Again, Rhule said today, there's going to be close to 50 guys in the portal from Nebraska this year just because of the roster limitations. It doesn't mean anybody's running from anything or anything else like that. It doesn't have to be a negative. It's just the situation that it is in college football right now with the new rules. So I'm personally not going to
get the roster down to 105 next year.
Exactly. I'm not going to shit on anybody for getting into the portal, whether it's their choice or Matt Rhule's choice to say, hey, there's not a spot for you here. I don't know how many of those we're really going to know one way or the other, whether it's their choice. Well, I guess we do know one guy, it's his choice, but
Malachi Coleman.
I don't even know if the majority of them we're going to find out if it's Rhule's choice or their choice. But I'm not going to shit on a guy if he wants to go somewhere and either play or make more money. I don't know. I don't really care. I just wish them the best, and we're going to figure it out from here. So whether Tristan Alvano or anybody else gets in the portal, it doesn't necessarily have to mean that because they're running from something.
I'm super bummed out.
I'm going to think that that's what it is if it's Tristan Alvano.
Yeah, but again,
I'm super bummed out about Malachi Coleman just simply because of the fact that I thought he had a bright future here. I know you didn't necessarily, but I
hoped for the best, but I wasn't.
The kid was too big of a freak athlete to not get coached up enough to be something. And it's disappointing to me.
Yeah,
but
we can talk about that when it happens.
He announced it today.
Well, yeah, it did get Rhule.
Fine.
Said it today.
He hasn't gone into the portal yet because it's not open.
Yeah, nobody can actually go to the portal.
Malachi put it out today, too. But back to the game. Like I said, Emmet Johnson, wow, we have a running back. Welcome to Nebraska, Jamal Banks.
I said that last week. I said, welcome back, Jamal Banks.
Well, I mean...
Because he played really well against...
He played well last week. He played really, really well against Wisconsin. He threw a monster block on that second Dante Dowdell burst through. Or no. Excuse me. This was the Emmet Johnson rushing touchdown for like 15 yards. He threw a monster block on the heels of Lindenmeyer and Borkacher just absolutely clobbering the right side of that line.
Yeah, I'd say he took Dana seriously about getting past two if he blocked well.
Well, and for me, it wasn't just how well Emmet Johnson ran the ball in a general sense, is where did all those moves come from? Like the jump cuts?
He's had the moves.
The spins.
Here's what I saw when I rewatched it today. He's been making those moves all season long, but he's never been able to get in the game long enough to develop any sort of a rhythm, to get any downhill momentum. As the game went on,
or
it
have
looked like he got
in front of him.
Well,
too.
He had more than a 2-foot crease to get through this time.
Yeah.
He was hitting holes, and he was hitting them with what seemed like an extra step.
Mm-hmm.
He seemed to almost be getting faster as the game went on because that confidence was just
absolutely
growing exponentially as we moved through the game. And I honestly think Dylan Raiola played a hell of a game. I think Emmet Johnson's probably my MVP on that game.
With this last game?
Yeah.
Well, who else would it be?
Like I said, Dylan Raiola was right there.
Yeah, but I mean, Emmet Johnson
almost going for 300.
Had 190 something total yards by himself. Like
he led us in receiving and
you're right.
rushing.
Sorry, Dylan. I know you play. He had a great game, but no, it's Emmet fucking Johnson.
I'm with you. And Dowdell, I think if they can keep Dowdell happy in that role of, hey, dude, you're going to be our red zone bruiser.
Yeah.
You're going to be our short down guy. Like, take a look at what's going on in Detroit with that two-headed monster they have at running back up there. That should be a great example for any of these tandems like this, and now run with it. A lot of the questions are, well, what happens at Iowa? Ramir Johnson's supposed to be healthy by then. How do you take either one of those guys off the field?
Yeah.
What Emmet was doing in both facets of the game, but also what Dowdell was doing this was by far his best blocking game. But then he throws up 3 touchdowns. Like, come on now.
Mm-hmm. What you have to do is you have to put them in until they don't do what you need them to.
Yeah.
So it's either they stay in the game the whole time, or you have somebody behind them who can come in.
Or
that's how it should be the whole time.
Or apparently the new standard that has been set where if you, for instance, don't practice well on Thursday, you don't play on Saturday.
Fine.
Or play much. Or if you fuck up something on Saturday, you're sitting the bench for a very long time, if not the entire rest of the game.
Rhule brought up Bonner in the press conference today, talking about how, after that fumble, I don't think he saw the field again. He had 16 total snaps for the game, and he'd been playing a lot more than that. But you know what? Rhule also said he understood, he took his lumps, and he's going to learn from it.
Yep.
The one that I find a little bit more interesting, and that I'm curious if you got the numbers on the tight end snaps, he alluded to, and the question was out there, Fedoni, I think he only had 2 or 3 snaps in the game.
Pro Football, everybody keeps saying 2, but Pro Football Focus has it at 3. I don't know, whatever. It's not much.
Is the one snap not counted because he was the false start?
Maybe.
So it wasn't technically a snap?
Yeah.
And he got pulled from the game, and he was done for the rest of the day.
Yeah, he did not play the rest of the game.
Yeah. But I thought Borkenshire and Lindenmeyer, especially Lindenmeyer,
those two guys had over 40.
Yeah, well, and Lindenmeyer's like a heat-seeking missile right now. That dude is blocking like crazy.
That's why he wasn't leaving the field. He was getting his blocks every time.
How could he? He was blowing dudes up.
Which speaks more to what you talked about with the Emmet Johnson stuff, getting into rhythm. If you're doing the right things on the field, you stay in the game.
And your confidence grows.
I don't know why that's
your ability grows with your confidence.
Concept to understand.
Well, maybe it isn't a difficult concept for Dana, but it was for somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's where I was going with this entire windup was there is a different air about this coaching staff right now on the offensive side of the ball that seems to just make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And Matt Rhule, as much said so today in his press conference, he talked for almost over 5 minutes about specifically. Now, I've never gotten a chance to coach with Dana, but I've always respected him from afar, got to know him a little bit over the last couple of years. So excited to bring him in, and I've already learned so much just watching him operate for a couple of weeks. Some things that you just naturally, and he pointed this out, you would think just naturally, you're a head coach in a major college football program, you were in the NFL, how do you not know all these things? If you only know what you've been taught, and he didn't come up under anybody big. He didn't do all those things, and he pointed that out. He's like, I'm learning some things that from a guy that grew up, kind of in a Godfather type situation where, he's got these elites in the coaching world that he came up under.
I thought it was interesting that he also brought up the press conference from Holgorsen last week and the reaction to Holgorsen talking last week. I thought that was kind of interesting that Rhule brought that up. Like, yeah, I got a bunch of messages that everybody loved Holgorsen up here last week and all that stuff. And it's like, those are other things that he's like taking note of.
We don't have to hear an amazingly worded explanation for everything. No. Sometimes we just want to hear you say, it sucked. We're going to fix it.
Yeah. Yep.
And stick to it.
And hats off to Rhule for just letting him do it.
Yes.
He's not getting in the way at all.
Nope.
Wow, how could he? When you watch, you score the most points, you've got the most efficient offense that you've had all week. You know what stat I'll bet they cared about after that game?
The most efficient offense since you've been here at Nebraska.
Well, there's that. But a stat that we could actually care about, or anyone could care about after that game, is yards per play. I don't even know what it was, but I guarantee it was over 6. I think you had 9 or 10, 15 plus yard plays. There wasn't hardly, I heard only 2 over 20, but it was an all around dominant performance. The defensive side of the ball, they've got to figure out what the fuck is going on in the passing game.
6.4.
There you go. And they said 7 is kind of top of the country, elite.
So that would be the 3rd best for this season. We had 8.8 against Northern Iowa and 7 against Purdue.
The other side of the things for me is on the defensive side, we've got to shore up the passing game. We made a very, very bad quarterback look pretty good.
We also need to tackle better.
We need to tackle better.
Especially coming into this next week.
I would be excited to see a little bit of the, hey, if you're going to fuck things up, you're not going to be on the field, bleed over to the defensive side of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I know people love him, but Gifford has just not played well this year, and he continues to miss tackles and misread situations and somehow fuck up on like a pretty regular basis.
Yeah.
There's got to be somebody back there that can at least put a little more effort into their tackles.
At one point, he had a little stinger in one of his arms where he couldn't really feel it. And he was kind of leaning, and he was trying to shake it, but he didn't really know that the arm was still there. And then a guy started to get run out on the field, to take his spot, and he, with his other arm, he's like, "Get the fuck out of here!" And the dude just turned around and went right back to the sideline.
See, that shouldn't happen.
Now he did say, it went right back, and he started to feel it, but he also said that it happens like on a semi-consistent basis. It's like, I'm looking. Now, forget football for a second. Maybe you need to get that checked. Like,
I'm sure he has. I'm sure he has, but why he isn't, if it's something as simple as his shoulder coming out or something like that, put a Soli brace on.
Well, he does have, I don't remember which arm it was what he was shaking, because it was like right in front of me where I was sitting, but he does have that one brace on, I think it's his right shoulder that he has a brace. It might have been the left.
Might just be something that nags him.
Yeah.
Regardless, if you're going to fuck up and you're not going to make the plays that you need to be making, you shouldn't be on the field.
I agree.
And I would like to see some of that bleed over. I think we finally saw a coach that was able to stand up and say, I don't give a shit who you're going to shush in the end zone. You're not going to play if you're not going to do things the way we're going to ask you to do them.
Mm-hmm.
And that accountability needs to flood through the team. It doesn't need to just be on one side of the ball.
Yep.
The other side of that is too, I don't know why, but we saw it 2 or 3 different times in this game. Offense gives us a lead. Defense gives it right back. Offense gives us a lead. Defense gives up a massive explosive pass play to a bad passing team. Gives it right back.
We didn't give up the lead in this game. I mean, we had it tied. For a second,
okay, but we get it. We get another score, and we give up a score right away.
I get your point, but I was just
maybe not the lead,
because like with this game, I know it then got tied 7-7 and whatever else, but I never like doubted the way that this game was going to go. Even that big touchdown pass. There's some people that could be like, "Oh my God, here we go." No, I was like, okay. Like,
we were up by like 20 points at that point.
We were in control of that game, in my opinion. Honestly, from the opening kickoff with it, where Barney returns at 45 fucking yards.
Best kick return I think we've seen in a while.
And like that just set the tone for the entire game. And we marched right down there, scored a touchdown, and yeah, they answered back and they scored their own touchdown, but then we continued to just dominate that game. And then the last 17 seconds of the first half, we scored 10 points. Which
was fucking awesome.
Completely flipped that game, back to our favor.
To turn that turnover under 20 seconds, to turn that turnover into points, we haven't seen a Nebraska team do that in a long time.
Well, going back to the field goal kicking, you know why we turned that turnover into points? Because we didn't just chuck it towards the end zone and we're scared to kick a field goal. We were able to throw a 10, 11-yard pass to the sideline and not worry about it because we had confidence in our quarterback, we had confidence in our wide receiver, we had confidence in the offensive line to block it, and we had confidence in the kicker to make the kick when asked for.
It's a lot of confidence.
A lot of confidence.
Well, that's what that game was. Like, it was a confidence builder. Going back to the press conferences a little bit, one of the big things is you had Raiola and Emmet Johnson stand in front of the media and talk specifically, without prompted, how much easier the offense is and how much it's been simplified by Holgorsen. And, I mean, you could look at it and say they were kind of throwing Satterfield under the bus. I don't really care. That's kind of reading into stuff, and you can say whatever you want to the people that really hate Satterfield. I don't. But the fact that they're bringing it up the way that they are says that they are far more comfortable with at least the play caller than they were before.
Yeah.
And it shows on the field.
I thought it showed more on TV after I watched it, but I could tell from the stands,
Mm-hmm.
Dylan Raiola had his swag back.
Mm-hmm.
He had his swag back when he came out on the field.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about trusting whether or not your guys know what they're doing.
And it's an enormous thing. We talked about this walking back to the car afterwards. When you got a streaky shooter in basketball, and he normally is a good three-point shooter, you got to get him some easy layups to start a game when he's been down, when he's been cold.
See the ball go through the hoop.
Yeah, see it go through the hoop. Get some freebies, whatever you need to do,
Mm-hmm.
and that confidence starts to build. Holgorsen didn't have him throw the ball past 3 or 4 yards for the first 8 or 9 throws. And then all of a sudden, he's moving again. He's grooving again. He's seeing some things. And they have, I don't know if they've taken the majority of the pre-snap reads out of it, or if this, I felt like the split back sets that he likes to use a lot of, that Holgorsen likes to use a lot of, saw a lot more of it this week. Almost every single one of those it seemed like the pre-snap motion of one of the two guys, it was usually Dowdell and Emmet Johnson lined up in the back. One of those two guys would flare out, even if it was just a couple steps to the right or the left. It allowed Dillon to see whatever he needed to see, and it wasn't allowing Wisconsin's defense to trick him the way that a lot of defenses were pre-snap.
Earlier in the year, we would criticize Satterfield and this offense for not trying to stretch the field very much. And I do want to point out, at least in this last game against Wisconsin, they only threw the ball past over 20 yards 3 times. They completed 0 of them.
Yeah.
Now,
one of them should have been completed if Nayer's foot had come in bounds. Would have been a touchdown.
Well, and I think one of the other ones would have been the one that went right through Nayer's hands in the end zone, who again should have been completed.
His hands have looked a little rough the last couple weeks.
The point of me bringing this up is earlier in the year, we would be crushing them for only throwing the ball downfield 3 times. But the big difference is those other passes are fucking working.
Yes.
Previously, they weren't. Now, whether that's Satterfield's fault or the execution's fault, either way, both of them is better now. Whether it's the play calling or the execution, they are both meshing together. They weren't earlier in the season.
You're talking about meshing. We're running a lot of those where earlier in the season, a guy knew he wasn't the choice to get the ball, and he wasn't finishing his routes.
Yeah.
Those guys aren't doing that anymore, and that's part of why those plays are working.
Mm-hmm.
They're also doing a good job that once they have a guy catch a ball, they're getting a block thrown.
Yep.
That's huge. It's huge.
Yep.
I mean, Dana completely fixed that with his comment about getting out there and blocking so you get passes.
Yeah.
He reinvigorated them wanting to do their job again.
He basically just called them all pussies.
Great. That's what it takes. Do it.
Only other big thing I'm going to point out, and then we can jump back into the questions that I still did poorly on, but I feel like I did my part and I helped out the team by going pessimistic.
Yeah.
Brian Buschini, a guy who was, as the phrase is loved to be used in the Nebraska media, much maligned last year.
Mm-hmm.
That motherfucker has
early
had
this year.
himself a freaking year.
At least the second half of the year, yes.
Second half of the year.
First half of the year was.
Let me get to where
Okay,
I'm going
sorry,
here, because he was still shanking some, but he was not nearly as bad as he was last year.
Correct.
And I guess I do have 2 things to point out, because you got to look at the fact that a lot of us, including me, were calling for Ed Foley's head about week 4 or 5. You got to give the man credit where credit is due, because they figured out the lawn slapping situation. They figured out and maybe it's Maher being a little more active, but they figured out the place kicking situation. Buschini is Boomschini again. He's on pace right now he only had 2 punts in that game. He averaged 50.5 yards in that game. He is currently on the season averaging 46.54 yards per punt, and that is just ahead of Sam Cook's 2005 school record of 46.51.
Is he any good?
Yeah, I think he's kind of good.
He was okay.
He was okay. He was okay. His son might be on the team.
The next guy.
The next guy. But I think it's pretty impressive that we're seeing those
and he had
types
like
of
a
numbers
great
come
40-year NFL career.
Yeah. Not a big deal. I mean, it wasn't 40 since it was just 19 years ago that he was at Nebraska.
It just seemed like he was there forever.
But you got to give credit to Brian Buschini this year in general, and you got to give massive credit, because I think first of all, punting is going to be a major factor in this Iowa game, as cold as it's going to be on Friday. But you got to give credit to Ed Foley. Man stuck with it. He's kept his head down. I don't think anybody's seen him in 10 weeks, but
he's out there doing his job somewhere.
I still don't know that he's going to be back next year, but
I'm with you.
I agree with you.
I'm with you.
Overall, yes.
I'm with you, because I still think our kick coverage, I mean, on that one where there was a 15-yard penalty assessed on the kickoff.
Yeah, with Mazuka spiking the ball.
The coverage was awful.
Yeah, it was bad.
I did love that Rhule just straight up called that a stupid penalty.
It was stupid.
Dumbass play.
It was the same thing as the after we basically knelt on it on the fourth down at the end of the game, and everybody was celebrating, and they called a sideline warning on us. Like, fuck off. We don't give a shit. Like, just take that penalty and stick it up your ass. Like,
well, we almost gave a shit because they almost returned that kickoff.
Well, yeah, but
It's
I'm
true.
talking about just
That's
it was
my point.
still.
That was a dumb penalty.
I
it was
think
definitely a dumb penalty. I also think it's dumb that's
I
one of
take
the
it more as
celebrations
that.
you can't do.
I take it more as that. It was a
It wasn't even a full blown Gronk spike. He spiked it from like right here.
Fine.
It wasn't like it went and hit somebody in the face. Or,
You know the rules, though.
Come
on.
I get it, but I take it more as a dumb penalty. Is why the fuck are you throwing the
That
flag
would
there?
not
Get the fuck
be
outta
your
here.
tune if that had cost us
Yes,
the
it
game.
would be.
if it had cost us the game, that would have
I
been
still
real
think
bad.
it would be a dumb penalty to call, but whatever.
I'm with you.
Questions.
Let's get into questions.
All right. Nebraska rushing yards 144.5. We destroyed this one at 180 yards rushing. That was a lot for
It was great.
what we typically do.
Ass whooping.
Beautiful.
Matt and myself were the only ones to take the over.
Yeah, of course.
You can't blame this on doing it for the team.
No, I did. I literally said it.
Doing it for
during
the
show.
team.
Sure.
Go back and rewatch it. I said it during the show.
I remember you saying it, covering your ass.
You're welcome.
Question 2, Wisconsin defensive pass interference calls. 1.5. They had 1. So they doubled their season total.
Double their
Which so
season
did we. We
total.
had 1 pass interference called on us too.
Yeah.
So Matt and the fans took the under. Nebraska offensive red zone scoring percentage, 76%. So going into this game, Wisconsin only had 3 games where they allowed less than 100%.
Only 3? Holy shit. I didn't know
And
that.
they still only have 3 games because we were 100% with 7 for 7.
Wow.
And just to give you a heads up on that, our red zone offense improved from 127th in the country with that to 119th.
Yeah.
So you can go 100% for one game and it still doesn't mean shit.
Still not great for the season. Matt, you were the only one to take the over on that one. Sacks by Nebraska, 2.5. They had 0 because there were no sacks by either team in that game.
That was a little shocking, I got to be honest.
Yeah. Honestly, for both sides. I mean, even
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
Raiola and
Yeah.
whatever. But
Especially with as much pressure as it seemed like we were getting.
Matt,
Even Rhule didn't know that in the press conference today.
yeah. BJ, you were the only one to take the over on that one. Tackles for loss by Nebraska, 5.5. We only had 3. Everybody took the over. Passing yards by Wisconsin, 174.5. They had way too fucking many at 292.
Yeah.
Granted, it was helped by that long play, but still, that's
Yeah, that
still way too
touchdown
many.
was,
It's still way too many. They still would have had the over even without that, but everybody took the under on 174.5. Who will have the most receiving yards between these 4 guys? Banks, Naor, Fedoni, and Lloyd. Obviously, it wasn't Fedoni.
Reminder, in the show, I said
Yes, you
Boyd. Or Barney, I'm sorry.
You did. You just said you would think it would be Barney, but that wasn't one of the 4 options.
True.
But you also said Banks, so
Yep.
you won that one.
Yep.
Because the fans also took Lloyd. And
Did
the
Lloyd
last
even catch a ball?
he did not. The last question was, who will have more offensive touchdowns? Nebraska had 5. Wisconsin had 3. Everybody took Nebraska. Matt, you went 5-3. Shocker, you won the week, you dipshit.
I think that makes me the opposite of a dipshit.
No, just a dickhead is what it makes you.
Myself and the fans both went 3-5, and BJ, shocker. Just like it's a shocker that Matt was first. BJ, you went 2-6.
Fuck it, dude. Let's go bold.
I think that's
Damn
all any
right.
of us care about.
I agree.
That's where I am right
Oh,
now.
that none of us have to see what Jed's chin looks
And all I
like.
can say is you're welcome.
That I think is also the most
Yeah.
important part.
I
is
mean,
that
I think
get
the
to
team
keep-
might have got a hold of that.
I get to keep this beard.
The team might have got a hold of that and given it a little extra oomph.
Thank you.
Don't forget, guys, we're about to highlight just a little bit of what we think about the Iowa game, but the majority of our feelings on the Iowa game are going to be spread during our live preview Husker Tailgate Black Shirt Friday coming up at 4:30 at Let It Fly West out in Elkhorn. It's basically off 204th and Pacific area out there. Used to be the old Barrel and Vine attached to those apartment complexes if you're curious. We'd love to have you all out there. We're going to have, if you're there, if you're a fan of the show, if you'd like to come up and give it your score prediction, give us a bold prediction for the game, just say hi, whatever, come on up. We'd throw you on a headset and we'll talk to you for a second.
It's going to be a party.
We're going to start at 4:30. We're going to be partying. We're going to stay there through the game and party and drink our faces off with the fans and hopefully be celebrating win number 7.
Fuck it, dude. Let's go bold.
Oh, not yet. We still got to play one more game. Got to play one more game till we get there. But on the Iowa side of things, like I said, we're gonna break it down at for the most part on Friday out there. We're going to do all of our questions and stuff live. We're going to have as much crowd participation as we can get because our sound's going to be pumped through the house. We're going to be asking the questions there and giving a little fan vote. So we'll have to make sure it's a yes or no or one way or the other questions.
Yeah.
None of these 4 choices. People.
No, I won't do that.
Be like The Price is Right, yelling out the answers.
Nope. I will put the questions out on Twitter Friday morning just for fans to start voting on them. But otherwise, yeah, we'll go through them on the show.
Yeah, it'll be a good time. Get there early if you can. I think we're going to be up there sometime around 2:00 to get started setting up and things like that. But
you can watch me kick these guys' asses live.
Plus, there's a ton of games that start at 11 o'clock, and like we talked about
be
before,
some fun viewing.
There's a billion giant TVs in that place. Just start watching football.
It's going to be awesome.
After you're done shopping, or if the other relatives are out shopping, you come out and watch some games.
You can just wait for them.
Yeah.
On the Iowa side of things, it's a very different game than what it was we were heading into last year. This Iowa offense is good.
Decent, at least.
Number 1 rushing offense in the Big Ten, number 13 in the country, averaging 213.5 yards a game. Passing, they're still bad. They're 18th in the Big Ten. They're not good.
Also, they have no idea who their quarterback's going to be. They started their
what's his name? Hurt.
Well,
like hurt.
They started their 4th string quarterback last week, Jackson Stratton, and he was a walk-on kid and whatever else. But he threw like 14 passes for 74 yards last week. Cade McNamara said that there was a little bit of back and forth that he said that he was not good to go. Kirk Ferentz said he's good to go. Then when asked about it,
So that's not usually how that works out.
no, but then when the media reached out to the Iowa athletic department, asked like, what's the difference here? They said that Kirk Ferentz misspoke. And then Kirk Ferentz said he was good to practice, just not good to play. And like, basically they don't have a fucking clue. And
There's a lot of Iowa fans
whoever
that
they
are
put
speculating that McNamara doesn't want to play there anymore.
Yeah. And so maybe he will. I doubt he will because he's dealing with concussion stuff. Brandon Sullivan is injured. He could possibly come back for this game. Or this
he's the guy
nobody fucking knows who is actually going to be starting.
Outside of seniors that aren't going to get drafted, there's no reason that they should put a player in this game to get hurt again anyway.
Yeah.
And they're 7-4. They're not they're not going to improve anything by especially if he's having concussion issues, that doesn't make any sense for him.
I agree.
Especially if all you need is somebody who's capable enough to turn around and hand somebody else a ball.
Yeah.
Like they might as well just run a wildcat the whole time.
Yeah.
Other than Caleb Johnson, who is going to break the 1,500 yard mark in this game.
Yeah.
Because he only needs 8 yards to do it. Who else, if anything, is dangerous on this offense?
Nobody.
They don't have. This is what I heard today. They have the same level of competency at quarterback with less wide receivers than Wisconsin had.
Mm-hmm.
Their offensive line is basically the same as or worse than the offensive line that Wisconsin had. But their running back is a beast.
Like they have a really good tight end, like Iowa always does, Luke Lachey.
Just one?
But they don't have a quarterback to get him the fucking ball. So it's like, he's a really good tight end, but if you can't get him the ball with anybody, like, does it fucking matter? So nobody on the offense. So it's Caleb Johnson.
Proven that he only has 25 catches for 218 yards in the season.
And 0 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Fedoni Hands even has that. Or Faboni Hands.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No, maybe not. On the defensive side of the ball, though, they get after the quarterback. Not necessarily in a bunch of sack numbers, but they get good pressure.
They're not as good as I expected them to be with how many guys they had returning from last year's team. I know that they're the kid that I'm brain farting on that got drafted in the first round, the defensive back, but they lost him, which was huge. But
that dude went to the Eagles. He's fucking killing.
No, yeah, he's really fucking good. But they're not as good as I expected them to be. Jay Higgins is still dominating as their linebacker. He's got over 100 tackles. He had 171 tackles last year.
Jesus, he's way below pace then.
Yeah.
He's only at 106 right now.
Only. Like, He still averages like 9.6 a game.
I was going to say, that's still incredible.
Like almost half of his games, he has double-digit tackles. Like, I think 5 of the 6 games
wild.
so far, he's got double-digit tackles.
Damn.
Like he's got 4 interceptions as the linebacker, which is leading the team. But one of the big losses that they have, this was before last week's game, is their defensive back, Jamari Harris. He opted out to sit out for next 2 games, last week and this week, to get ready for the NFL draft. I looked at a couple of draft people, whatever. They had him currently in like the top 15 in defensive backs and like top 5 in cornerbacks.
Wow.
So like he's good enough.
Oh, darn, we're going to
miss
miss seeing him.
But, having him not there is a very good thing for Nebraska.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, defensively, they're still going to be what Iowa defense is. They're very hard-nosed. They're very disciplined, which is what Iowa team in a whole always is. But, I think Jay Higgins is also, as good as he is, he's kind of nursing a little bit of a hamstring injury from what I heard on one of the Iowa podcasts that I suffered through today. But again, missing that defensive back is going to hurt them as well with the way we like to throw the ball around right now. So
hopefully that continues.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that it's going to get worse going into week 3 with Holgorsen.
No.
The question has got to be circulating in everybody's minds. What would have happened if Holgorsen had said yes in the offseason? Because, Christ, we've seen the largest offensive output at multiple positions and for the entire offense in just his second week. You think about the collection of talent that we have. If they would have been getting his tutelage from spring on, when he was originally here, when everybody thought he was going to be the quarterback's coach before we hired Glenn Thomas.
I'm going to do my best not to think about it.
Yeah, that just kind of hurts a little bit, doesn't it?
I just don't want to think about it.
Also, with the way that you phrase that, as far as if Holgorsen would have said yes before the season, with the way that the report is that he wanted to be the one calling plays, and Rhule said, well, we already got somebody for that. So more of like, what if Rhule would have said yes?
Well, if
that report is correct.
I know Josh Peterson said that, but at the same time, he's the only one that said that. And Holgorsen said on the podium, I wasn't ready to get back into football full time.
Well, and again, it's not what that Josh just like, he heard that from people. So
I get that. But you get that directly from Holgorsen saying, I wasn't ready. It wasn't my time. Like, I wasn't able to give it my all at the time. I didn't know what I wanted to do for sure. I'm
just saying it could be a little bit of both of saying yes.
Yeah, absolutely,
that's kind of what I was trying to get at.
And you know what? None of us can fault Rhule. You even talked about it. I wouldn't fire. You said it several times this year. I wouldn't fire Satterfield. Yep. I wouldn't fire him even after this year. I'd give him a 3rd year.
Yep.
It is what it is. And who knows? Maybe Holgorsen walks and he's learned, and Satterfield's learned enough from him that he can take back over and be as effective. I don't know. I would really be upset if that happens.
That's not going to happen.
I think the majority of the fan base would riot on
that's
that.
Not going to happen. That's why a couple weeks ago, even though I was saying I still wouldn't fire Satterfield at that time, it had gotten so bad and toxic that he had to go. Like it wasn't an option.
And Rhule's kind of called that out a couple times in the media, I feel like, in that, he even said it again. He's not talking about a bunch of things that weren't already being talked about. It's just being delivered differently.
Yep.
Well, the difference in delivery sometimes is all it takes. A fresh voice.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if that fresh voice has 13 years of head coaching experience, has led prolific offenses, has put boatloads of dudes in the NFL. You don't have those accolades for anybody else on your offensive staff.
It doesn't matter if your message is the exact same. If it's coming from a different person who says it a different way, it means different things.
Yeah. You could be getting the exact same financial advice from Warren Buffett and from me, and you're going to listen to everything Warren Buffett has to say and probably roll your fucking eyes at me.
Also, Warren Buffett's probably going to say it a little bit differently.
Well, maybe, yeah.
All due respect, I'm not going to even roll my eyes at you because I wouldn't be listening.
That's my point.
I know.
So pick your socks from me, guys. I've got the same advice as Warren Buffett. That's the moral of this story. No, on Friday it's going to be fucking fun. I think it's going to be a good game.
It's going to be cold.
The way that everything is going to line up, it feels very similar to the Wisconsin-Nebraska game. I'm going in going, I'm expecting to lose. I feel like we're going to shit the bed somehow, but I feel like these are pretty evenly matched teams. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. As far as the evenly matched stuff and everything else, I still have a few days to decipher which way I'm fully going to go, but I will just phrase it this way. I hope by the time we get to Friday, my opinion changes.
My biggest thing is, are we going to continue on this roller coaster of up and down week to week?
That's kind of my point.
Or is the Holgorsen effect really just that strong to where our trajectory goes like this now instead of, ups and downs?
Well, here's
really only one way to find out, and that's to get to the game.
Yep. Let's look back at why we've been on a roller coaster. We've talked about the front-running mentality of the defense and how they have been so tremendously, like you just said, up and down. The offense was bad through all those games. The defense keeping us in the games was the difference. If our offense is going to go out there and all of a sudden be a night and day difference and be able to put up, 35 plus on Iowa, I have good faith in that game regardless of what the defense does. I still don't think the defense played a tremendous game against Wisconsin. They played well enough, and we scored more than enough. And the other thing the offense did a great job of is we controlled the clock a lot. When we were getting out there, we had explosive playability enough that we could have scored faster than we were, and he was holding stuff up. And he was using the run game to an elite expert style level.
Yeah.
To manage that clock a little bit. They scored a couple different times really, really quick in that second half that should have put them back in the game. And we trotted back out there and ran off 4+ minute drives that ended in touchdowns.
Yeah. Great.
Those are killers.
I thought it was funny in the post-game press conference that Rhule brought up the play calling specifically in this game, also mainly in the fourth quarter. He's like, he threw the ball a little bit more than I wanted him to in the fourth quarter, but it worked. So I just kind of like, okay, keep doing what you're doing, I guess. So it's like
and so the section that I was sitting in, they're all long, like they've been season ticket holders forever. And the words that were coming out of the 80-year-old grandma's mouth around them throwing the ball in the fourth quarter with the lead, I will not repeat on any show.
Especially considering the words that we already say on this show, and you don't want...
There's something else. Like, I expected her to have tattoos under that Christmas sweater she was wearing. It was a little mind-boggling.
You sound like you're 90 years old right now.
But also, there were very high percentage pass plays that worked out.
Well, the big thing is in the fourth quarter alone, we had that lead and we needed to milk it, and we threw the ball around. We had the ball for 11 minutes in that 15-minute fourth quarter.
Yep. Yeah.
So, like, I may agree with the sentiment of that grandma that you're speaking of, but it worked.
I also don't.
Like,
I don't.
I mean, with the sentiment, like, as far as I get it, traditionally, you're up by a bunch of scores. You want to milk the clock, all that stuff. I understand the point of the conversation.
My whole thing was we'd have been killing them if it didn't.
Exactly.
That's it. That's my whole point.
Well, also, we've been seeing it all season where they've tried to sit on the ball in the fourth quarter with a lead, and how'd that turn out for us?
That's exactly
we
where
were
I was
also
going.
running the ball very well in this game, especially in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. That's exactly where I was going with this.
It's like we didn't need to. Sorry.
One of the first things that Rhule said about Holgorsen coming in was that he's more aggressive, I'm more conservative. Mm-hmm. I need that balance. And you know what? He's 100% right. Mm-hmm. Because there's a couple of games this year that had we been more aggressive with the lead early, like we were in this game, it wouldn't have been such a question at the end of the game. The Rutgers game would have been far more comfortable if we wouldn't have gotten a 1-touchdown lead and then went into Patriot mode.
Yeah.
And I've talked about that multiple times on this show this year, how Matt Rhule likes to go Bill Belichick Patriot style when he gets a 10-point lead.
Why did we get rid of that button every time you bring up the Patriots or Bill Belichick?
Well, because he's not there anymore.
Still, Jesus Christ.
And they're bad now, so nobody hates him anymore.
Up.
Everybody's moved on to hating the Chiefs.
He's going to bring him up for the next 20 years.
Everybody's moved on. How do you not bring up the greatest football coach of all time? Everybody's moved on to hating the Chiefs now, man. So it's not even a big deal anymore.
No,
But
my biggest thing about this game coming up is I'm worried about the exhale. We saw that after the Colorado game. We put so much into that Colorado game, and the team and the fan base exhaled. And yes, we came back and we beat Northern Iowa, but that's when the question marks started to happen with a lot of different factors of this team in the Northern Iowa game. And then we have the Illinois game, and so
It took
on
us like
and so on.
6 games to reinflate.
We put so much into this Wisconsin game to finally become bowl eligible, to finally get the monkey off our back by beating Wisconsin. We dominated the shit out of them just like we did Colorado. Is this team going to exhale? And can they get their breath back?
brought up a lot of really good points there.
That's my biggest fear with this game coming up.
Which
But
which one of these is it? Is it this?
Fuck it, dude. Let's go bold.
Or are they going to respond like this? Fuck yeah! And rage into Iowa, where we still have the little brother, big brother mentality going on that we get beat by Iowa. We have since we came into the league. Yeah, we beat them a couple times, but
you could also say, I could also hear the argument of there's no pressure in this Iowa game for the first time in a long time. Like, we're finally going into an Iowa game where we don't have to win this
Neither
to go to a
team
bowl
needs
game.
it.
Like, and Rhule brought it up in the press conference today, where I was celebrating and waving to our players saying, have a Merry Christmas and all this stuff. You know, if that sort of stuff can continue to fuel you and everything else, that would be great. But again, I'm worried about the exhale. And again, we already saw that earlier this year. And
Several times. That's the real challenge that we just need to issue to this team is go out there and do the exact same thing 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
For the first time this year.
Yep.
Go out and don't dip into the valley. Stay up on the top of the mountain. That's it.
prior to the Wisconsin game, it was go out and do that great thing 2 halves in a row because we hadn't had 2 solid halves of football in a game.
Any of it. Like, just get out there and actually do what you know you're capable of every single week.
But here's my question to you guys on this. Do you think that the fear that you have of the exhale outweighs the getting over that hurdle finally, especially for the senior class of we can do that. We can win the game. We're questioning whether or not we can win. We can win in the big moment against the big opponent that we can't beat and accomplish the bowl game that we haven't been able to accomplish. Which is bigger there? Because I feel like that's a pretty well balanced thing, and your fear is totally founded. Especially, like I said, the way the defense is let down when they're quote unquote front running. Is this a front running team now at this moment, or have they learned their lesson 2 or 3 times this season? And now see, guys, we have the ability right now to take this from what felt like almost a lost cause. Are we going to start hearing Matt Rhule's name get called as a hot seat coach in the offseason going 5-7 again? To we have the ability to completely change everything right now and end up 8-5 on the season. And that feels so different.
Mm-hmm.
So different. And you look at the recruiting side of things. Oh my God.
I think the bowl game in and of itself with the recruiting aspect is
huge.
Yeah.
Even if we finish 6 and for some reason, if we finish 6 and 7 after the bowl game, getting to the bowl game for so many thousands of reasons is so much bigger than the game itself.
Including getting Nebraska's name off of that list of bowl game droughts. Every time you turn ESPN on and they're talking about shit.
Yeah, on a graphic on every game that's played.
Getting that monkey off your back, that is huge. And you're right. Maybe that is enough to keep this team fueled. For me, it's that tried and true, prove it.
Yeah.
I want to prove it.
That's fair.
That's all.
And also another factor is we're 1-3 on the road.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's Kinnick at night.
Yeah.
Kinnick at night.
And it's going to be cold as shit.
And like the USC game was a very evenly matched game, and I ultimately picked USC because it was at home. The Nebraska-Wisconsin game was a very evenly matched game. I kind of really started leaning towards Nebraska for many other reasons, but also it was at home. You already said it earlier in the show, Iowa-Nebraska is a very evenly matched game with 2 teams that are pretty much the same on different levels. It's at Iowa. That scares me too.
Yep.
Like,
the weird thing to me is just looking at what the spread and the line, the over under is right now. They're not projecting this game goes over 40 points.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, that's pretty typical for a Nebraska Iowa
also
game.
Yeah,
gonna
but
be-
not for these two
It's
offenses.
supposed to potentially be stormy, but it's at least going to be windy and 21 degrees at game time. That's
you
fucking
can
cold.
say that for these offenses, but Nebraska still on the season averages 25 points a game. Iowa on the season defensively only allows 17 points a game. So it's like,
You split the difference there, you're at basically 19,
I mean, it's
21, excuse me.
it's great that we scored 44 points last week, but what did we do the previous couple of weeks? Like, we didn't really score much. So, I mean, again, with what you said earlier with Prove It, can you do it twice in a 2 weeks in a row?
Nebraska has covered their half of 39.5 points every single week since the OSU game.
Okay.
Iowa has scored 29, 20, 42, and 40 points in their last 4 games.
Against
The
were they
over
against
seems
defenses like Nebraska's though? I'm not trying to say Nebraska's is a top 10 defense, but Nebraska's defense is better than some
Not
of those
against
teams.
Maryland,
Illinois.
UCLA, and Wisconsin.
Exactly.
They put up 42 against Wisconsin, which is crazy. It's wild to me that we scored the most points on Wisconsin on the season. Scored more than Alabama, more than Iowa, more than Oregon by a lot.
I'm just saying I wouldn't necessarily look at the offenses when you're looking at that over-under. I would look at the defenses going against those offenses, and those defenses are pretty good. So
The number just feels real low to me.
Like I said, the weather's going to play a major factor. I think it does help us, and I'm sure Iowa does too. I don't even know if they have an indoor facility. That shithole school over there, but yeah, it's fuck Iowa week, by the way. I don't know if we've mentioned that or not, but
We have
fuck
Iowa.
It's fuck Iowa week.
Fuck Iowa.
We're going to be putting out tons of stats about how bad Iowa sucks.
About how to fuck Iowa.
I was looking earlier for a picture of any trophies that they have, and I couldn't find anything.
Just fuck Iowa.
yeah, because Google said file not found.
Yeah.
Fuck it, dude. Let's go bowling.
We're going bowling. We're excited. Friday at Let It Fly West, 4:30. Be there. If you're not there, jump on the live. Let's interact. Give us some grace because we'll be doing a live show and drinking. It's probably going to be a mess.
For the first time.
So
Yeah, for the first time.
Not drinking for the first time, but the
It'll be
live
fun
show
for
for the
us.
first time.
I don't ever drink.
And this may be the most unbelievable night in Cornhusker football history.